Welcome, Lieutenant Governor in the state of New York, Antonio Delgado. The future leaders, so the first week they're called interns, but after that, for the remaining 5 weeks, we refer to them as future leaders. And they're just giggling because they know how dramatic I can be. I am Judith Beville, Greenburgh Town Clerk. And this program was founded, Lieutenant Governor, 15 years ago with in partnership with our town supervisor, Paul Feiner, former town attorney Tim Lewis, who is currently a Court of Claims judge for the state of New York, and myself, Judith Beville. We started out with fewer than 10 students, and you are looking at 46 students right now in our 15th year. The purpose of our program is to introduce our area youth to local government through authentic and practical experiences. Our 4 pillars are communications, leadership development, problem solving, and teamwork. And so all of our activities are focused on those 4 pillars, as well as our guest speakers. Please meet our town supervisor, Paul Feiner.
Thank you very much for joining us. And the Lieutenant Governor, Antonio Delgado, was in Greenburgh about a year ago when you announced that we're building a sidewalk on West Hartsdale Avenue. It's a major corridor, and we're now making major steps to make Greenburgh a pedestrian friendly community, building sidewalks from the Hartsdale train station all the way to Westchester Community College and Dobbs Ferry Road. Probably within the next week, another sidewalk's going to be built from Greenburgh Town Hall to Parkway Gardens. So we thank you and the state of New York for your efforts helping to fund that initiative. I'd like to introduce you. Our Lieutenant Governor has one of the most important jobs in New York State. Lieutenant Governor, which is really the equivalent of being Vice President of the United States for New York. The Lieutenant Governor was a U.S. Congressman. He was the first person of either African American or Latino to be elected to Congress from upstate New York. He ran for Congress, beat 6 Democrats in a primary, and then beat an incumbent Republican congressman, which is very, very difficult to do, especially in upstate New York. Lieutenant Governor Delgado was appointed Lieutenant Governor after the former Lieutenant Governor resigned, and then he won his election for a full term last year. And for those of you who are not that interested in politics, but are more interested in music, the Lieutenant Governor was involved in socially conscious rap music, was involved in the music industry, and that possibly helped you get the recognition that enabled you to win the congressional seat. So without further ado, I'd just like to thank you for joining us, and I'm looking forward to hearing your presentation, and students may have some questions after. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Feiner. I appreciate the kind words and introductions to Judith as well. Thank you for your leadership. It's exciting to be with all of the young people there today. I'm assuming that this is an age range of anywhere from 8th grade up through high school into college, and to varying degrees. Each of you has an interest in public service. And I don't think there's a better way to come to appreciate the importance of public service than through engagement with local government. A lot of times we talk about politics and we talk about government and we look at it through the macro, the biggest lens we can, presidential races, Congress, But to really understand democracy and to understand how democracy works at its best, you have to understand the role of local government and how every single day your town supervisors, your town clerks, your mayors, they are at the front line when it comes to civic engagement and making sure the community collectively can provide for itself and support each other. And that's ultimately what democracy is. It's government for the people, by the people. So you want people in the community, embedded in the community, from the community, doing the work on behalf of the community. And the people put those people in place to do that. But I want to also be clear, for me, when I was younger, I was not somebody who kind of set out about being a political actor. This was not something that when I was growing up, I thought about being in Congress or being lieutenant governor. I thought about a lot of other things. I thought about being a basketball player. I thought about being a rapper. I thought about being a teacher. It wasn't until later in life that I got the bug to really want to get involved in politics, and in particular in public service. I grew up in Schenectady. I grew up in a working class family. Like I said, my first love was basketball. I spent a lot of time on the basketball court. My parents were really, really focused on my education. So I spent a lot of time when I wasn't playing basketball, hitting the books. And for me, that was really the gateway into opportunity. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. So being able to do well in school and perform at a high level allowed me to go off to college and continue my basketball career, but also to continue my education at Colgate University. And over time, I was able to earn a Rhodes Scholarship and study overseas at Oxford and study political science and philosophy and follow my passions, and then come home and get my law degree at Harvard. Now, when I went to law school, I didn't go to law school knowing that I wanted to be a political actor. I went to law school thinking that I would practice law, but I didn't know what kind of law that I wanted to practice. And ultimately, when I graduated from law school, at 28 years old, I moved out to LA and became a hip hop artist for 5 years. I moved to California. My parents were certainly confused by my decision, but I did it. And I did it because I was following my heart and I wanted to speak truth to power. And at the time, I didn't really believe a lot in the role of politics. I thought a lot of people who are in politics, they say a lot of things, but they don't actually do them. They're all about sound bites and they don't really mean what they say. And I didn't want to kind of be in that position. I wanted to be able to say what I wanted to say and feel it and communicate it. And I believe and still believe that hip hop is a great platform, to do that. And then I came back to New York, became a lawyer at a very big corporate law firm in New York City. Started my family, had a wife and kids. And it wasn't until I was almost 40 years old that I decided, after the presidential election of 2016, that I wanted to utilize my skills. I wanted to figure out how to tap into being a communicator, being a bridge builder, and fighting for what I believed in to help the community that gave me so much when I was growing up. And that community for me was upstate New York. Growing up in Schenectady, my wife, Lacey, was from Woodstock and Ulster County. Our families were all still there. So it meant a lot to come back home with our families and figure out how to serve. And it just so happened that running for Congress was the best way for me to get involved at that point in time. It took a lot of work, and I had to learn what it meant to be in politics. I was a newbie. This was nothing that I had a lot of experience with. But I knew in my heart of hearts that I wanted to serve the public, and I wanted to do right by the public, and I wanted to listen to the public, and I wanted to fight for the public, and I wanted to figure out how to get things done for the public, for the people. No matter where you start, no matter how you look, no matter your party, I just want people to believe that government can actually work for them and not be exploited by it, or be represented by people who just want power. So I come at this from a position where it's more mission driven than it is power seeking. It's about trying to figure out how to use your skill set, whatever that skill set might be, whether it's communication, whether it's writing, whether it's advocacy for a particular issue, but figuring out whatever your skill set is and figuring out how to utilize it for the betterment of others and for the betterment of your community. That's what public service is, and that's what it means to be involved in government. The goal here isn't to make money. The goal here isn't to be famous. The goal here isn't to be anything more than somebody who cares about the public, who wants to do right by the public. It doesn't mean that everything you say and do is always going to be in agreement with what certain folks in the public want. Part of being a leader is trying to figure out how to help the community get to where you want it to go, how to inspire people to be the best versions of themselves, how to push people to overcome their own obstacles and their own challenges. And so leadership isn't just doing whatever the wind blows, right? Going whatever way the wind blows. It's about trying to figure out what your principles are, what your values are, and how you think you are a reflection of the community at its best, and how you want to help that community get to a better place and make sure that people are inspired to be where they are and to be who they are. So I share this with you because I think there's a lot of cynicism and pessimism right now around politics, and it can come across like a game sometimes. And I get it. I certainly have my moments where I'm skeptical of people's intentions, but the only way this works is if you actually believe in it. The only way the system works and democracy works is if people invest in it in a real and genuine and authentic way. And whether it was my time in Congress, where I represented a very rural district that had a lot of different political viewpoints. I mean, my old congressional district voted for President Obama, and then it voted for President Trump, and then it voted for President Biden, right? So being in a district that had so many different political views, I had to learn how to build bridges and communicate. And now as lieutenant governor of the entire state, a very big state, a very diverse state, I have to get all across the state, from the North Country down to the city, all the way out to Buffalo, to make sure that I'm connected with every community and listening and building bridges. So I don't want to talk too much longer, because I'd rather just answer questions and answer any question you have about leadership, about whatever you want to ask, honestly. I'm happy to answer your questions, but I just want to stress that while you're still young, continue to be intellectually curious. Do your own homework. Make sure that you don't get trapped in echo chambers of misinformation. Social media right now has a way of creating rabbit holes where people can just go down and not really have perspective anymore, or you can rush to judgment about other people's points of view before you really analyze your own position. Do your own homework, figure out who you are, read, and try to understand what you believe in. And that doesn't mean you're going to have all the answers. It doesn't mean you should have all the answers, but it does mean that you should have humility, and that, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. You just got to be able to pick yourself up and learn from that. I became a rapper. I wanted to be a superstar. That didn't quite work out, right? But there were a lot of lessons that I learned in my experience that I use to this day that allows me to be the kind of leader that I want to be. So even when you think you're not succeeding, there's a lesson in that. You should embrace that, and you should not dismiss it as just, oh, I didn't do what I wanted to do. So continue to do your work, continue to study, continue to focus on what you care about, and continue to be curious about the world around you, the people around you, and please never be too cynical. I think the fact that you are where you are right now, it means that there's something inside you, there's some type of bug, some type of light that you have when it comes to engagement and community and government. You want to learn a bit more about it. You want to, figure out what it's like. So continue to pull on that thread, continue to be curious, and hopefully, it'll direct you on a path that gives you a lot of meaning and a lot of purpose. And the last thing I'll say is that's the key, is finding your purpose. You have a life that is your own. And so it's important that you do whatever you can to figure out what's going to give your life meaning and purpose. Everything I've tried to do in my life, I've tried to do it based on what I felt was right for me on the inside. Even though some folks might have questioned my decision-making at times, I knew that in my heart of heart, I was doing what felt right to me. And as a result, life has taken me on a journey where I feel incredibly fulfilled and meaningful and purposeful. And you can't really ask for more than that in life, is to feel meaningful or to feel like your life has meaning. So continue to do what you're doing. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Anybody have questions? You could go up to the mic. Any questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have much time, so let's please take advantage of this amazing and wonderful opportunity to speak with the Honorable Lieutenant Governor about leadership or whatever topic you would like to engage him in discussion about. Jack?
Hi, Lieutenant Governor. My name is
How you
Jack
doing?
Maney. I just have a question. As a Democrat, what was it like running in a district where it is so Republican dense, and what challenges did you face throughout that entire process?
You know, it was a tough process because, you know, our politics right now are very partisan and very extreme, and people are very rigid in their points of views. And that goes for both Democrats and Republicans. And so the benefit of my journey in life was that I've been through so many diverse experiences, and I've had to engage in so many different types of rooms with different kinds of people that I can go in just about any type of situation, I think, and figure out how to try to connect with people, even if we don't agree on every issue. Because fundamentally, we're all human, right? So trying to figure out what connects us before what divides us. It wasn't easy. I mean, you know, as a person of color, especially with a hip hop album, there were definitely attempts to paint me a certain way. There was a lot of media money spent in TV ads trying to make me out to be something that I wasn't. But I had to trust that the community would get to know me if I got to know them. And that meant going to the community, that meant listening to people, that meant meeting them where they are, looking them eye to eye and talking to them heart to heart. And, you know, it was a challenge. I'm not going to say it wasn't a challenge, but I think if you put your faith in the community, if you have discipline, and if you really care, it can go a long way. And in the end, you know, the district, I represented a district that had 11 counties, and they had 11 counties. When I first ran for Congress, only 2 of those 11 counties were blue counties, counties that were considered Democratic counties. The other 9 were red, and all had voted for President Trump. But by the time I ran for re-election 2 years later, not only did we win those 2 counties that were already blue, we flipped 3 other counties that had never voted blue, and those same counties voted for Trump at the same time they voted for me. And so that shows you that a lot of times it's about popping the echo chambers, right? People have to get to know who you are and not get trapped inside of the bubble that they're in. And if they get a chance to know you as a human being before they get to know you as a political person, you at least have a chance to make a connection and to build. And that doesn't mean you're going to agree on every issue. Believe me, it does not mean you're going to agree on every single issue, but it does mean that you can have a chance to build respect for each other and be civil to one another, and not, you know, make it seem like everybody who believes something different from you is your mortal enemy.
Good morning, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. My name is Ari Maltz, and as somebody who wants to pursue a career in government, from your experiences, what is the best advice you have in order to get from where you were?
Well, appreciate your interest and thanks for the question. The biggest piece of advice that I can give you is work on you, like really figure out what you want to do. And that might seem like a simple thing to say, but what I have found is there are a lot of people in politics who chase politics not because they're chasing a vision or a mission, but they're just chasing power. And when they get into positions of power, they end up doing a disservice to the position as a result. They don't really serve the community, they serve themselves. And even if they have the best of intentions, what happens is if you don't know what you want to do, then you can become an instrument for the system, for other people to use and manipulate for their benefit. You become sort of a puppet because you don't know what you are or who you are and what you want to accomplish. And so I would tell you to really, while you're young, read a lot, study, and don't, educate yourself in the sense of ideas. Educate yourself in the sense of, what it is you care about and how do things actually work and what is required to make things work. What are you prepared to sacrifice or compromise on? What are those things that you really, believe in your heart of heart you can't compromise on? But get a feel for that, because ultimately, the more you get to know who you are, the more authentic you can be with other people. And authenticity to me is the most important piece in political life. When people know that you're being real and honest with them, that matters more than anything else. I've come to learn. When you really can be honest. And it's the people who don't know themselves who have to kind of play a game or put on a front. They don't know how to be authentic. And so that's where the disconnect happens.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alicia Owens, and I was wondering, why is it that
Hi.
the Greenburgh Central School District does not have as much state aid support as school districts like Ardsley and Yonkers?
Well, I can't speak exactly to why certain schools, certain situations. I can give you a general answer that I think is more problematic across the board in the way schools get funded. A lot of schools primarily, get funded based on property taxes, and the tax base of each community is going to be different. We at the state level can provide funding and do provide funding to public schools across the state, but that is not capped, right? That communities have the ability through their own tax base, through their own community, to supplement that, to add whatever they want. And that's where a lot of the inequalities also take shape. And so as long as we have a system which funds schools in a way that can lead to disproportionate outcomes as far as amounts of money communities are able to utilize for the betterment of their public school district, we're going to be in this position. So I think it's important, and this is an issue that I care deeply about as somebody who benefited a lot from my education. We have to collectively step back and think about how we want to set a baseline for what we think any student, any child in any community should have to be successful. And until we establish that baseline and make sure that every community has that baseline, no matter what, then the inequities that are now being experienced are going to persist. And so it's incumbent upon us to rethink how we fund our schools. And this is not just something that's symptomatic of New York. I mean, this is an approach that happens all across the country, and it creates real deep inequities, and it gives certain communities a head start, in ways that are just they're not fair. And so again, I can't speak to the specific, dynamics for every single school, but I can tell you what the general issues are and the general dynamics are and why these problems unfortunately persist.
Thank you.
That's good. Just as, a follow up to that, I think, the state possibly should just consider taking a look at the school aid, formula. We have in Greenburgh, a number of school districts, some are wealthier than others. And one wealthy school district got $4 million and a poorer school district got under $300,000 in aid this year, and a lot of people were sort of upset. So this has been going on for many, many years, but it's something that maybe your office and the legislature could take a look at.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kayla Cruz. I am the office assistant in the town clerk's office. I'm also a rising senior at the University at Albany. Oh yes, and former intern.
Hi.
Hi. I noticed that you went through a lot of different paths, being like a basketball star and then going to Oxford, Harvard, and then rap. How did you continue to have faith in yourself? Like, I know you say that you have faith in your community, but how did you continue to not let yourself set back?
Well, I appreciate that question. And I have to say that I was blessed and fortunate to be raised in a household where, even though my parents were, they kind of had their own idea of what they wanted me to become. And even though they were, strict and disciplinarians, they also gave me a lot of confidence in myself, and they gave me a lot of love, I guess is the best way to put it. And I always felt loved. I always felt supported, whether it was my parents, whether it was my church family. And I was in church a lot growing up. I was like our second family. And so the love of self is important. And the love of self is oftentimes sourced in love from others. The more you're able to feel loved, that also helps your ability to love yourself, through good and bad. And so, love to me is been at the heart of my ability to go into these different spaces and figure out how to continue to persist no matter what the challenges that I have faced. And believe me, I have failed a number of times, and I have had some really down moments where I didn't know what I was going to do next. But knowing that I had the support of my family, knowing that I had felt their love and had learned to love myself throughout the good and the bad times, I think that's always helped me to push through and to always know that, tomorrow could be better. And so just having that constant mindset is what has allowed me to, I think persist, through different phases of my life. So I would just encourage you to really count your blessings, be grateful, for the love in your life, and learn to appreciate that with an eye towards, inspiring yourself and loving yourself.
Anybody else? Yeah, good.
Hi, my name is Gabriela Luma, and you said, quote, "I thought that politics were all about saying things but not really doing them, and how you want to walk for the people." So what have you done? What have you contributed to this country, perhaps even just at the state level, that has bettered the lives and thus the quality of life of the masses?
Great question. Love that question. So there's two things that I've tried to do. One is more about how I engage with the communities. So when I was in Congress, I spent a lot of time really learning what each community that I represented needed, right? So I had a lot of veterans, that I served. I had a lot of farmers in my old congressional district. I had a lot of small businesses. And so I would go all throughout my district and I would hold town halls and I would listen to people and hear their concerns and hear their issues. Then, right, so that's part one. But then I would say, okay, as a legislature, I need to craft laws that are going to have an effect on these individuals' lives, right? So if I hear, for example, that our farmers are struggling and they want to be able to refinance, their farmland so they can sustain their business, but the current ability of them to do that, the cap for the amount of money you can refinance is too low. And so they're not eligible to do so. if I hear that from enough farmers when I'm going around my district, well, then I say to myself, you know what? I'm going to go back to Washington. I'm going to write a law that's going to change that. It's going to raise that cap and make more of my farmers eligible to do that so they can sustain themselves. Then I'm going to introduce that bill, and I'm going to fight for that bill to pass the House. Then I'm going to fight for that bill to pass the Senate. And then I'm going to hopefully have it signed by the President of the United States. So which is exactly what happened. So whether it's fighting for farmers, whether it's fighting for small businesses during COVID, we had a lot of our small businesses who were struggling during the pandemic to keep their businesses open. And so fighting to make sure that there was relief that was sent to each of those small businesses to sustain themselves over the course of the pandemic. Another example of when I was able to step up and do something for our small business community. Infrastructure, a massive issue for our communities across upstate New York, particularly when it comes to broadband and cell service. Again, introducing legislation that would make sure that a lot of our upstate rural communities actually got broadband so they can connect to the world and not be left behind. Very, very important. So in sum, right, I had 18 bills signed into law over the time that I was in Congress, 10 under President Trump and 8 under President Biden. The great thing about being a legislature is there's an easy way to measure your success. Either you've introduced bills that have become law that affect people's lives, or you haven't. And so if you really want to measure success in the most concrete way, you ask a legislature what bills that you have introduced have become law. Because if they can't point to any, well, then it's not clear that they're actually doing their job. And the ultimate goal should be to have an impact on people's lives. And for me, being able to do that work in Congress, and now as an executive, which is different, right? I'm not a lawmaker now. Now I'm an executive. And so my job now was to figure out how to create a vision to plug in all these different bills that ultimately get signed by the governor, right? So I'm working with the governor to figure out how do we create a vision so that all these bills that do get passed, they get executed appropriately and they affect people's lives in a meaningful way.
Thank you for your walk.
Thank you.
Hello, Lieutenant Governor. My name is Vyas, and I was just wondering, have you and Governor Hochul did you take any inspiration from Governor Cuomo's past legacy, or are you trying to reform New York State's political political ideas into something else entirely?
Well, I do think that with every new administration, the goal should be that new administration brings a new kind of energy, brings a new kind of vision. Otherwise, what would be the point of a new administration? What would be the point of different types of leaders? So ultimately, myself and Governor Hochul, what we're trying to do is bring our personal experiences and what we've been able to accomplish over the course of our life and have that inform the work that we do. And I think because we have our own unique set of experiences, we are naturally going to be creating a different kind of vision than a prior administration would have. And so the challenge for us is to figure out as a team, as a partnership, how we can best utilize our respective skill sets and our collective experiences in a way that really can empower the state and leverage all of our strengths as the state. I mean, the governor is the first woman governor of the state. That in and of itself, is going to bring a whole different set of experiences and a different mindset that will inform her work, right? And I too bring my own set of unique experiences as a person with Latino heritage, right? And so there's a world in which we can inform what we're doing by our unique set of experiences. And I think hopefully in doing so, we're able to best reflect the diversity of the state and usher the state into a future that's committed to inclusivity, that's committed to equity, and that's committed to diversity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, y'all, we probably only have time for one more question.
Hi, Lieutenant Governor. My name is Caroline Russell. I have a question regarding a project that we've been working on as interns this summer. So there is a population of about 75 legal immigrants who are staying in Ardsley at a motel. We've had the chance to talk to the mayor of Ardsley about ways that we can help this population. One idea that she had for us was to lobby to get a federal judge to come to Westchester who could possibly help speed up the process. And we've also talked about ways that we could decrease the period of time that it takes to get working papers for immigrants. I was wondering if you had any ideas or ways for us to help this population that is in our community.
Well, first, I applaud your desire to want to figure out how to help. I think, that's a very positive thing, and I appreciate that perspective. And you mentioned the work authorization piece. The governor has worked very closely with the White House and with President Biden's team. In particular, we've been out there advocating, to reduce that wait period. So you're right to focus on that. The sooner that we can, provide these communities with opportunities for work, the better. And, importantly, this is a federal issue, right? And it's always important to understand that when it comes to immigration, the states can only do so much. Immigration is a federal issue. That's the jurisdiction of the federal government. And so what we're experiencing, not only in New York, but in other parts of the country, is really a symptom of the federal government for decades now not figuring out comprehensive immigration policy that creates more clarity for people, that creates more order, and that creates more predictability in our system. And so as a result, the states are left to try to figure out in these kinds of situations how to make do with a situation that is already chaotic because of the shortcomings of what has happened at the federal level. And this is, again, across administrations, from Republicans to Democrats, Democrats to Republicans. We just have not been able to get this done. So we are advocating for just that issue around work authorizations and shortening that time period. I think, trying to get more judges is also appropriate, where it's feasible. We need that dynamic everywhere, though. We need that at the border too, to process, the paperwork for asylum seekers and the like. And so there's a shortage in a lot of places that we are all suffering from as a result. So I will continue to do what you're doing and know that in the governor and in myself, you have, leaders in New York that are trying to do the same thing, having direct discussions with the president, around shortening that work authorization period. But again, it's in the hands of the federal government. All we can do is advocate and make our position known and what it is we want to accomplish, for these families who have endured an awful lot. It's important that we do what we can to help.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's our appreciation.
Well, thank you all so very much. I appreciate your time and your attention, and I wish you all nothing but the very best, and I hope you have a great summer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you.